Hello everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name's MJ Garrity and I'm a physical education teacher in New York City. This past summer, I ran my first ever half Ironman, and this is my story.
Why do a half Ironman? I was getting this question a lot from people that I spoke to when I told them I was going to do one. As time went on, I found that question to be very broad. There were other questions I had to answer to myself, such as, why push yourself to swim, bike, and run 70.3 miles all in the same day? What benefits will you gain from training so hard, day in and day out? Is your body made to travel these long distances, or are you going to let yourself break down and quit? They seem like simple questions, but there are many answers making it more complicated than I thought. Some of the answers were harder to come up with, but overall, the whole idea of doing a half Ironman was to see how far I could push myself mentally, emotionally, and physically. During the duration of this global pandemic, I found myself in a position I never thought I would be in. I had a ton of time to myself. Mentally, I wasn't in an okay position, like many people in the world, and I knew that I had to do something to push myself to stay physically fit. The one positive thing that came out of this pandemic for me was time. I finally had time that I could fill to pursue my dream of becoming an Ironman. I'll never forget the day I sat on my computer and actually signed up for my first half Ironman. For the first time in my life, I was intimidated by something that was much bigger than myself. I never felt so anxious, excited, and nervous in my life until that moment. I was very fortunate that I had such great support from my family when I told them I was going to do this. They all know how much of a jock I was growing up, and it didn't surprise many of them that I was going to take on completing one of the most physically demanding events in the athletics world. I was then introduced to my trainer, Greg Bianco, through my uncle, and Greg took me under his wing. I started training with Greg for the Ironman 70.3 Ohio, which is the half Ironman. A half Ironman consists of a 1.2 mile swim, 56-mile bike ride, and a half marathon or 13.1 mile run, all back to back to back. For someone who has never competed in a long distance race, I was nervous to even try to attempt doing all of this. But I knew that under Greg's guidance, I would finish the race. The first week of training was difficult, considering I hadn't ridden a bicycle in years, let alone a road bike. I always grew up riding BMX bikes as a kid, so getting used to riding a road bike took me a little while to figure out and get used to. I was a long-distance freestyler for my high school swim team, so I knew at some point my stroke would come back to me. But the running part scared me. I never ran a half marathon before in my life, and I knew that I would have to push myself in my training in order to complete that part of the race. As training went on, the workouts became more difficult. I was waking up at 4 a.m. to get workouts done before going into work. I would spend a full day teaching and then go home to do a second workout on certain days. The workouts got longer and longer as time went on, and there were days where I would wake up and think to myself that I didn't want to train because my body hurt. Mentally, I was flushed. I felt like I couldn't do the workout for the day. And emotionally, there were days that I broke down because I wasn't having a good day of training. I felt like I was letting myself down, like I was letting everybody who was supporting me down, and I felt defeated. During this time is where I found the real reason as to why I was doing a half Ironman. My parents were teachers and taught me that having a good role model that you could look up to in life is so important. My parents were my role models and were very much the reason why I became a PE teacher. But also, I want to be that role model to my students. I want them to know that you can do anything in life that you put your mind to. Ironman's slogan is anything is possible. And this slogan got me thinking that if you're willing to be disciplined and dedicated to the process to get what you want in life, then anything is truly possible.
So making my way out to Ohio was a long 9-hour trip via car from New York out to just north of Columbus, where I got into my hotel room. And it wasn't until I got to my hotel room where I started to feel anxious. Now, I don't normally feel anxiety unless I know that something is about to challenge me. And I got out to Ohio about 4 days before the race, so it gave me some time to train on the course that I was about to compete on. And while going through those training sessions, I knew that this was going to be a challenge.
All right, good morning. We're about to get this last bike workout in before the big day tomorrow. It's Saturday right now, racing tomorrow on Sunday. As you can see, this is part of the course that we're going to be riding. Very, very flat, lots of farmland. And we're just going to take it as it goes. Nice little 20-minute ride, 10 minutes out, 10 minutes back today, just to warm up the legs.
When it got to race day, I had changed my nutrition plan. I had 4 water bottles on my bike filled with goos and water in order to rehydrate and take in calories. My original plan, I only had 3 and a full water bottle of water, which ultimately backfired on me. Somewhere around mile 35 or 40, I went to stand up on the bike and sprint, and my legs started to cramp. So that told me that I was dehydrated and I needed to get more liquid in me. So I had to toss 2 of my water bottles and take in Gatorade. I had to then transition from the bike to the run, and in T2, I went to get off the bike and my legs started to cramp. When I got into the run after T2, my legs fully cramped on me at mile 2, and I knew that I had to keep moving forwards, and that's what ultimately got me to finish the race, was my will in order to keep moving forwards and not stop. Now, while on the half marathon, when I was running, there were tons and tons of people there just screaming positive vibes and just having a great attitude, and that again ultimately helped me to move forwards and finish the race. When I got to the last third of a mile, I sprinted the way into the track, into the field, and it doesn't look like it on film, but when I crossed the finish line, both my legs were completely locked, and I felt like my legs weren't going to make me walk anymore. However, I was able to walk out of the finish line, which was great, but ultimately I finished the race. I couldn't have asked for anything better, and all the positivity and just a great race day is something that will stick with me forever. So why did I want to share my story? I wanted to share my story because yes, completing a half Ironman is something that I've always wanted to do, and it's been a goal of mine for as long as I can remember. In being a teacher and a role model, I want my students to know that goal setting is so important for yourself. When you set goals, you're more apt to put in the time, the work, and the effort into achieving those goals. When you achieve those goals, set higher goals for yourself. My next goal, I'm going to do a full Ironman. Yes, 140.6 miles in one day is my next goal. And when I achieve that goal, we'll just see where it takes me. But I want you as my students to know, set high goals for yourself. When you set those high goals and you achieve those goals and you put yourself on a path to greatness, just note, anything is possible. Also, big shout out to my trainer, Greg Bianco. Thanks for kicking my butt throughout this entire process.